Although I do have a lot of questions as to why they're so into like drapes and cloaks and coats this season. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if they're trying to like inspire a new fashion trend for the winter. Like it's very unclear. It's giving medieval times. Like I don't really know what's going on. Hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown. I'm Brianna, your Bachelor relationship analyst. If you love getting into the nitty-gritty of the relationships and breaking down the drama, then this channel is for you. Today we're going to be covering episode 4 of Gabby and Rachel's season. Okay, so we open up the episode with Hayden talking to the guys. He openly admits that he calls Gabby rough around the edges in the previous episode. And he's acting like he's the victim. He's saying stuff like he hoped that she would be more mature, that she used that word to describe herself, but when he did it, it suddenly wasn't okay. And here's my problem with this. I feel like it's kind of like when your sibling, like you are allowed to call your sibling super annoying, but if someone else calls your sibling annoying, it's not okay, right? Like Gabby can self-describe herself however she wants, but that doesn't mean that the guys are available to just like call her out of her name and make her feel bad about herself, especially like when she hasn't done anything to them in the first place. Like he just pulled up and was unnecessarily rude for absolutely no reason, and then feels the need to continue the dialogue. It seems as though he subconsciously knows that what he said was out of pocket, but is just trying to like speak on it some more to see if anyone will validate what he said and make him feel better about himself. Again, he's playing the victim card, and I'm really glad that no one is buying it. They're showing all these like little clips of the guys like sleeping while he's talking and like looking off into space, like literally doing anything but paying attention to him. So I'm glad that Hayden doesn't have a crew of other guys that think it's okay to just speak to women any which way. So then we start our classic Bachelorette international journey. Our first stop is Paris. And we pull up and we find out we're getting on a cruise ship. We're on Virgin Voyages, and this feels like a mini little ad in the middle of the episode. I don't know if anyone out here has watched that show Unreal, the kind of shows what it's like to work for The Bachelor, like be a producer on this show. But the host on that show would always have like random ads in the rose ceremony. Like they would never give out roses. They would give out like razors or like hats or like some random product that they were trying to plug that week. And so this is what this kind of felt like, a little bit not dystopian, but I already get ads on the commercials. If I'm watching the show, it's because I want the content. I have enough advertisements in my life already. So that was just slightly annoying. But I will say this is a cool idea. The Bachelor, I have said many times, has the same formula, does the same type of dates and scenarios and activities over and over again. So I actually think a cruise is a fun way to switch things up, have a little unique way to travel around Europe. So I'm excited about that. So then we have some one-on-one dates. Gabby chooses Jason for hers and Rachel chooses Tino. So let's go ahead and dive into Gabby and Jason first. So the big overarching theme, or like the big question that Gabby's trying to get answered in this date, is whether or not Jason can open up. He's been super reserved thus far. He seems like a nice guy, but we don't really know much about him. So Gabby wants to be able to feel like she can take their relationship to the next level by the end of the night. And so they're just walking around Paris. They go get their heads sized for berets. They go on a merry-go-round. Like, they're just having a good time doing what the locals do, I guess. And I like their vibe so far. I mean, if Gabby is anything like me, obviously she is a superstar. She is the moment. She is the icon. And for me personally, I need to be the star of my relationship. You know, like I cannot have someone who is more, I'm a very dramatic person. I cannot have someone who is even more dramatic than I am. I cannot have someone who is more chatty than I am. And if Gabby's anything like me, she will also appreciate that side of Jason, and that it's not like he's checked out or disconnected, but he's just there. He's chilling. He's letting her do her thing. He's supporting her. He's like the those dates, they're doing the same thing. They're walking around the city, seeing the sights, being locals for the day. They are eating crepes. They are making crepes. And they are making out. That's literally all they do. Their date was super duper steamy. They are making out every single chance they get, which, like, it looked like a lot of fun. You know, I'm not here to be a hater. I have no problem with that. But I just want to make sure that Rachel's actually, like, connecting with her men in more ways than just, like, chemistry and spark and just, like, how many butterflies can I get around you, you know? And so that was my only, like, piece of caution when I was watching this day portion of the date for them. But it looked like they were having a grand old time. So then we pull up to our dinner portions. These, like, deal breakers up front, you know what I mean? Because the worst thing you want to do is, like, get to know someone really well, get really excited about them, and, like, your personalities are really clicking, but then you decide or you find out that at your core of who you are or what you need in a relationship is incompatible, you know? So I think it's good that Rachel did take that step back and said, okay, let me make sure we're on the same page about my deal breakers, and then we can continue to get to know each other and learn about our personalities and more of the basic type of stuff. So I like that approach. I like that Tino was ready and available to support her in that. So I have a good feeling about them. I could definitely see them going super far. So then we pan over to Gabby and Jason, who have their one-on-one date. So first of all, y'all know I've got to do some fashion takes. So I really enjoyed Gabby's outfit for this dinner portion. She pulls up, she's in a white button-down dress with kind of like mock shoulder pads. Like, they definitely had the appearance of shoulder pads, and they could have been padded. I don't really know, but they looked like they were just like puffed up fabric. Like, it looked like the seam was just like maybe had some sort of arch in it and just like splayed down the rest of the shoulder. Like, it didn't actually look like it looked hollow. I spent a lot of time dissecting that just now. It doesn't really matter. It looked the same either way, but I was really curious, I guess, as to whether that was a real shoulder pad or if it was just like a nod back to like the 80s type of fashion. Anyway, so she had that going on, and then there was like a fun little crisscross section, open back type of design, and then she had a little Santa drape over it. I did notice that they were 2 shades of white, which really bothers me. I think overall the outfit looked good, and so it kind of diminished how much I disliked that particular feature, but I'm really, really, really not a fan of when you're wearing the same color in 2 different shades if they don't like complement each other. And I think white is one of those shades where you gotta be monotone across the board if you're wearing a full white outfit. So that was my one critique on that, but otherwise she looked good. Although I do have a lot of questions as to why they're so into like drapes and cloaks and coats this season. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if they're trying to like inspire a new fashion trend for the winter. Like, it's very unclear. It's giving medieval times. Like, I don't really know what's going on. It doesn't look bad, but I also can't say that it's my favorite thing in the world. I'm a fan of coats, personally. Anyway, so we're pulling up. One other thing I gotta touch on before we get into like the meat of the conversation is when they're walking up, Gabby's like, oh, like, how was your break in between the day and night portion? And he was like, yeah, it was good. I took 2 showers. And she was just like, yeah, da 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 da. I don't know why we just scooted on past that detail. Like, I have a lot of questions, Jason. Why did you take 2 showers? Like, I just want to know what the reason was behind that. Like, I can understand maybe coming in feeling dirty from the day. You're like, okay, gotta freshen up for the night. That can be accomplished in 1 shower, in my opinion. But, you know, I guess that's not as pressing to Gabby. I would have stopped the conversation and been like, can we elaborate on this a little more? Anyway, so we sit down and, okay, Gabby, she's really ready for this man to open up. She opens the conversation, giving him a few leading questions. Like, I've noticed that you've been reserved in the house. Like, can you tell me more about yourself and your personality and stuff like that? And he kind of explains that it is true. He is reserved, if one could not tell. And that he describes his experience in the house so far as super overwhelming. I guess he's not used to being around all these people 24/7 all the time, because unless you just graduated from a fraternity in undergrad, I don't know why you would be. And he didn't eat or sleep for like the first 3 days. He had a mental breakdown. Like, man has been going through it, okay? He has been put through the ringer. And he traces some of that back. Of course, some of it is attributed to his personality, but then he also connects it back to the feeling of imposter syndrome that he's been experiencing since he was a child. He says that growing up, he always used to compare himself to his peers. He started playing tennis and just felt like he was never good enough. And so he quit tennis. And I guess it's kind of implied, I suppose. He doesn't really elaborate, but it seems as though this has been a pattern and a feeling that he's been kind of trying to work through his entire life. He also shared that he has been in therapy and that he's been really trying to tackle this and work through it and come out on the other side. And y'all, we love to hear that. We love a man who is in therapy, because way too many men come out here into this dating pool and they're expecting to find a woman who will do the work for them, right? Like, I have noticed a lot of men do not like taking on the agency of doing their own work. And since women are socialized to be more emotionally available, we tend to be able to connect emotionally better. We're more equipped to emotionally connect with our friends, our partners, our family members due to our socialization. And so men just take the easy way out, in a sense, instead of just like doing their own work, signing themselves up for therapy, like doing whatever they need to do to process whatever they need to process. They're just like, oh, let me get into a relationship and she will just host all of this work that I need to do for myself. And that is not the purpose of a relationship. That is the purpose of a therapist. That is the purpose of a professional. And the problem that I have with that is twofold, right? And number one, therapists are trained professionals. They are here. They have gone through years and years of studying to learn and be experts in their field and subject matter. And they are ready and available to help you. Like, this is literally their job. This is what they're getting paid to do. Your friends, your partners, your family members do not have that level of expertise. Of course, you should want your family, and it's appropriate, even expected, for the people in your life that you're close to be part of your support system. But not everyone has the tools and or capacity to actually guide you through the process of processing whatever you have going on. They're just here to support you, cheer you on, listen to you, hear you out, and just kind of be there for you. Like, that is the purpose. Secondly, when you expect your partner to like be your therapist and host your processing work for you, you're actually taking away their opportunity to be a partner to you, because that's not necessarily what a romantic relationship is about. Of course, you're supposed to help each other grow. You're supposed to help each other on your journeys. Like, of course, 1,000%. But there's so much other stuff. Like, you're supposed to have fun together. You're supposed to like joke around, have new experiences, travel, be lazy, watch TV. Like, there's so much other stuff you're supposed to do with a romantic partner. And if you take away that role from them, because a therapist on the flip side is not available for those activities. They're not going to come get lunch with you and your girls and just hang out. Like, that's not their job. So you're kind of meshing two worlds that don't need to be enmeshed. So I'll say all that to say that I'm glad Jason is not doing that. I'm glad that he has recognized, if I want to date, I need to be looking for a partner. And if I need to work through my imposter syndrome and anything else that I have gone through in life, I need to find an appropriate outlet in which to do that. And we can tell that Miss Gabriella is here for it as well. She opens up about her mom and just kind of explains, you know, that her mom didn't have the tools to love her when she was growing up. She always placed conditions on the love that she was willing to give her. And as a result, it made it super difficult for her to be able to receive love from other people. And she shares that she's also been in therapy. She's also been working through this for quite some time. And they're really able to bond over that. Jason brings up inner child work, and y'all, they're just having a moment. And we love it. We love it. I'm usually the person, if you can't tell, I watch this show for the drama. I don't watch it for the romance. But this conversation was just so like refreshing that it made me actually excited to watch a healthy dynamic unfold on screen. That makes me sound like a really terrible and toxic person. I promise that I'm not. But I don't know where else to go with that. So then the next day we have Gabby's group date, and she is taking her men to do some French boxing. You know, typical classic, whatever. The big storyline from this demonstration is that Rachel also pulls up for the final like matches, and she brings her crew of guys with her to be in the audience and to just kind of watch along. Cool. So she's sitting down with Gabby, they're chatting, they're watching the matches, whatever. Sis starts to get really worked up in her head during the experience and kind of outlines her thoughts for us afterwards in her confessionals. And basically, she's really upset because she feels like no one is paying attention to her. She feels like no one is making eye contact with her. No one is going out of their way to come approach her and speak to her. And it's really hurting her feelings, and she's feeling unseen. Okay. She really lost me with this one. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, she really I was just watching this and I was like, I was really trying to be there for her. Okay, like, I was really, you know, sis has been going through it. She's been feeling rejected. I was really trying. But she just really lost me. And I was getting deja vu flashbacks to Clayton's final 3 fantasy suite season. Because if you watch my recap for that, I think had an unpopular opinion in that I felt like, you know, Susie, whatever, had every right to be upset about what Clayton did. But I also felt as though she got mad at him for giving him a test. The test in that case being, do not sleep with the other women and do not tell the other woman you want to be with me if you want it to be me at the end. She gave him that test without telling him he was taking that test, and then proceeded to get upset with him for failing said test that he didn't know he was taking. And I felt like this was the same type of situation. She pulls up, because my thing is like, you're bringing someone to a situation in which the expectations on the societally accepted expectations of how to interact in this space are already laid out for you. Okay, the expectations are you come to this boxing match and you watch the boxing match. That's what happens. Okay, everyone knows that. I'm going to this event to watch the event. Boom, done. Okay, Rachel has a whole other hidden set of expectations in her head talking about, I actually don't want you to watch this match at all. I want you to watch me. I want you to talk to me. Okay, we'll get into that in a second and what's going on with that in a minute. But you cannot bring someone to an event where the expectations are laid out for them and then get mad at them because you had a whole different set of expectations that are just abnormal to what the situation and what society understands that the situation calls for. Okay, so she really just lost me with that. I could go on for days, but we got to get to the next point. So Rachel's upset because they're not pouring their eyes into her the whole time. And I mean, I get it. Like, that's their friends. Like, they're trying to watch their friends. They're there to hang out, have a good time. And on the flip side of that, if I were her, I would be really annoyed if they weren't. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's really important to have a partner that I can trust to independently manage social situations, even if we arrive together. Okay, like, let's use a party, for example. If we're going to a party and we both know people, of course it's different if it's like only my friends or whatever, but like, let's say we're going to an event, we both know people. Obviously, in this case, all these guys live in the house with all these other guys. Rachel has Gabby. Like, everyone has someone that they can chill with and talk to. So if we're going to an event and that type of scenario, I would like to be able to trust that my partner can independently manage that situation. They can balance spending time with me and making sure I'm having a good time, as well as having agency to make sure that they are having fun, that they're talking to the people that they want to interact with. And overall, they're managing their own experience and that I'm managing my own experience. I don't need someone to manage my experience for me. I don't need someone to babysit me and always make sure that I'm having a good time. And like, don't abandon me. Don't just like pull up and I don't see you until 4 hours later when you're ready to leave. But you don't need to be constantly, every 10 minutes, are you having a good time? Let me make sure I'm locking eyes with you across the room. Let me make sure I'm checking on you in the middle of this conversation that you're super engrossed in. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. That's not interesting to me. So I just had a lot of question marks as to why that is something that Rachel was interested in. Like, why that's legitimately something that would sound fun for her. Because to me, that would scream clingy. That would scream like you cannot just go into a scenario and have a good time. Like, you need me there. It was what she was describing that she wanted was uncomfortable. Regardless, she was committed to this vision of how she wanted this boxing match to play out for her. She's getting more and more upset in her confessionals, and she decides it is time to take action, okay? So she pulls up to her group of guys, and she basically just gives a speech, and she says, hey, you know what? My feelings are really hurt. I felt really unseen at that interaction, you know, a few hours ago, whatever. I would have liked someone to like make more of an effort to lock eyes with me, to speak to me. So just wanted to let you guys know how I'm feeling. Goodbye. First of all, before I get into the issues of all this, I thought it was hilarious. Like, how the guys just literally look so like dumbstruck. Like, they just look so like they had been hit by a bus. Like, they were so blindsided. And I know everyone loves to joke that like, oh, men can't read women. Like, men have no idea like what's going on. They're so dumb. Like, da da da. But this was a case where like they actually had a perfectly valid reason to not know what was going on. Like, she really came out of nowhere, gave no lead up, gave no indication at the boxing match that she was having a bad time. And like I said, did not communicate that this was her expectation of how the boxing match should have gone. And then came and bulldozed right over them about how upset she was. Okay. And then she didn't give them a chance to respond. Like, if you're going to be that upset with someone and you're going to take time out of your day to speak to them about it, which is inherently taking time out of their day to listen to it, it should at least be a two-way street. You should at least give them the opportunity to apologize, acknowledge their feelings, disregard your feelings if that's what they're going to do. Like, you should at least hear what is going on the other side. One thing, of course, this whole situation is wild, but my main takeaway from this situation is that I just have a lot of question marks in regards to how Rachel views love and if she has a healthy perception of what she's looking for out of her relationship. Because the vibe that I was getting from her speech that she was giving, and one comment in particular that stood out to me from her confessional, is she was like, you know, like, we were at this boxing match and these guys were watching the boxing match when I'm supposed to be the only thing that you care about. And this was like super duper incredibly alarming to me, because it sounds as though Rachel is looking for an obsessive type of love. And that's not love. Like, just period. Like, that is not. Obsession and love are two very different things. Love and infatuation, two very different things. And it sounds like Rachel kind of wants like that storybook ideal that we've been, especially as women, have been fed all of our lives. So like, the guy's supposed to chase you and like you're supposed to not be able to live without each other and like all this extra stuff. And that's not cute. Like, that's not fun. That's not interesting. That's actually very scary and can lead to codependency. And I'm starting to wonder if Rachel does have codependent tendencies and is trying to facilitate, unconsciously maybe, a codependent relationship with her and her next partner, or her future husband. So that's just it goes back to the example of what I was talking about with like the party and the independence. Like, if you want someone who like is only ever focused on you, like, that's gonna get really old and really tired one day. And I don't know that Rachel sees that yet, or that she has done enough introspection and like unraveling her maybe anxious attachment style. So then the next day we have Rachel's group date, and we pull up. There's this French couple kissing, making out, whatever. I don't know if this is gonna make sense to anyone else out here. Let me know in the comments if it does. But I also watched 90 Day Fiance, and for some reason this couple reminded me of a couple on 90 Day Fiance. Like, no one in particular. I was just watching it and I was like, oh yeah, we've been transported to 90 Day Fiance realm. Like, I don't know if that makes sense at all. Please tell me I was not the only one who feels this way. Let me know. Anyway, so the couple gets up and they're like, oh, okay, like, we're here to talk to you about the art of French seduction, blah, blah, blah. And so the guys have to, they flirt with Rachel, they do an armpit test, they make out with their hands, and they like give a speech. I don't know. I was kind of, to be honest, I was kind of zoned out during this date, just because it was. But if the intensity of his actions are coming from a place of like, I'm feeling triggered subconsciously and I don't want to just have the rug pulled out from under me again. I don't want to be dumped in a way that I didn't see coming again. So I'm going to do everything I can to stabilize this relationship before it gets out of my hands, as opposed to just like a natural, like, I'm feeling this way about Rachel because of a natural progression of our relationship, and I would like to express it in these various ways. I'm not really sure. I'm not clear on his intentions and motivations at this point in time. Either way, he gives Rachel the whole rundown. He's like, yeah, we broke up. It was super surprising, blah, blah, blah. And what Rachel takes from that is that Tyler understands the importance of being hurt in order to find love. Another alarming statement from Miss Rachel. Like, I'm just so concerned about what she is looking for in a partnership, what she's valuing. Because as a baseline, when you're dating, when you're open to dating, whatever, of course, you are inherently a relationship or a particular similar again. Like, I wish that did not happen to me. That is all that I take from the low points in my life. Of course, there's things to be learned, and in dating in particular, if you go through a trash relationship, it makes you more perceptive and more in tune to like figuring out what works for you and spotting red flags earlier on. So it's not to say that the low points are just like can't teach you anything or are just like a waste of time. But I personally am not of the mindset that they enrich the high points of your life. I think that it is perfectly possible to start dating, find a relationship. It could be your first relationship, it could be your 10th relationship, and it's not something you have to struggle for. You just get into it. You're compatible with the person. You have minimal amounts of conflict, and the conflict you do have, you're able to work through, and you just have a happy life. I think that is perfectly possible, and we shouldn't have to just be out here just like fighting and pounding our way to like find love. So I was just super thrown by Rachel saying like, oh, Tyler, you understand the importance of being hurt for love. And I couldn't tell if he was just like agreeing because he was like, okay, sure, like I'm here with this cute girl, I'm gonna agree with what she says, or if he was like actually on the same mindset. Either way, both signs pointed me back towards Rachel's potential tendencies to be trying to facilitate a codependent struggle love narrative for herself. So I really have my eye on her. I'm really concerned about whatever she is up to. So I just have to say, before we get into everything, this is the first time that I really liked both Rachel and Gabby's dresses. Okay, so Rachel pulls up. She has a sleek black dress, little asymmetrical crisscross, like collar. Some of it is like matte, some of it is glitter. She has like a fun cross stitch, like glitter slit on her leg. Like it was everything. I was really here for it. Gabby had a plum open chest mesh sleeve number kind of going on. The cut of the dress, kind of basic, but the color is what really sold me. It was so just like deep and rich, and I loved that she matched it with her lipstick. Like, she looked really good. They both looked really good, and I'm so happy. This is one of the first times, if not the first time, I think, that I'm saying this. So then we move into the cocktail party, and before we go there, we actually hear Logan tell Jesse that he's still feeling Gabby. He's on Team Rachel, but he says every time he's in the room with Gabby, he realizes his feelings for her and regrets that he didn't have a chance to speak with her after the first night. Jesse is useless. I saw this tweet and they were like, yeah, this is why Tayshia and Caitlyn should have hosted, because absolutely they would have pulled the leads aside and told them what was going on, given them the information they needed to know to make an appropriate decision that worked for them. Jesse just sat there being like, okay, sounds good, cool, you ready for the rose ceremony? Like, just utterly useless. So putting a pin in that. Then we go to the cocktail party and we pull up. Hayden is talking to Rachel. He has a scrapbook of his dog. He shares that Rambo unfortunately has cancer and just talks about, you know, what his life expectancy looks like, what the treatment process has been like, pulls out his stuffed duck that gets him through the process. And I'm just like, why did we take this away from him? I'm assuming that his chemo treatments or radiation, or I don't know if dog cancer is the same, whatever treatments he's going through have stopped or been put on pause while he's here. So I would assume that he would still need this item to be his source of support, especially while his owner is away. Massive question mark there. Whatever. Rachel, of course, she's super respectful, receptive, engaged in the conversation. It's a normal chat. Done. Tino pulls up. He steals Rachel away. Hayden takes that as the biggest slight ever. And my thing with him is he really needs to learn his role. Like, he really needs to just, like, take a step down, realize the environment he's in. I can understand the feeling of wanting more time. Everyone wants more time. That's not a unique feeling to have. It's not like she was on a one-on-one date and she just cut him off and said, okay, I've heard enough about your cancerous dog. Let's go dance at this private concert. Like, you know, that would have been rude. But they're at a cocktail party. It's expected that everyone's going to be chit-chatting and stealing the lead away and, like, all this extra stuff. So he really just needs to, like, come on back down to earth. Okay, that's not even the worst thing he did that night. So then we have Meatball over here who's really reflecting on the wild statements that Hayden was making in the house earlier this week. And he's like, okay, I gotta tell Rachel what's going on. I cannot let her, you know, involve herself with a man of this quality. He sits her down. He tells her, he gives her the 411, the scoop. And then she pulls Hayden aside. And he's like, she's like, do you know why I'm pulling you aside? And he's like, oh, is it about the dog? And she looked so exasperated. Like, the look of genuine confusion on her face was priceless, hilarious. And she's like, again, so respectful, so, like, poised. She's like, it's not about the dog. Thank you, though, for sharing with me about your dog. Like, you know, don't want to put any disrespect on Rambo's name. But we are here to talk about why you out here calling me and my lead, my co-star, out of our names and all this extra stuff. And, okay, let me know in the comments. I don't know if anyone else out here watches Love After Lockup, but the most recent season, the one that ran from, like, March to, like, April or May or something like that with Antoine and Lacey. And he was talking about, like, one of the producers was like, if Lacey ever caught you cheating, like, what would you do? Would you open up to it? Or would you own up to it? And he was like, no, absolutely not. Why would I do that? If you're ever caught doing anything, deny. And I feel like Hayden just watched that show and took notes and said, yeah, sounds good. This is my strat. And just pulled up to Rachel and was like, no, I didn't say that. Didn't say that. Didn't say that. Like, just bold-faced looked her dead in her eyes and just lied. For no reason. Like, for literally no reason. Wasn't even good at it. Like, wasn't even like, oh, actually, I said this. I can see why so-and-so might have interpreted it that way, but, like, this is actually what I said, and this is actually what I meant. I mean, of course, that would have been gaslighting, but, like, it wasn't even a good liar. Just, like, flat out, no. Like, if you're gonna lie, at least be good at it. You know what I mean? Like, give me some razzle dazzle. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I am toxic. Who knows? I might be the drama. Anyway, so yeah, Rachel's had enough. She sees through the lies. One question I did have for her though is because in the last episode, I was under the impression that she didn't know exactly who had said what to Gabby that was rude. Like, I was under the impression that she didn't know that Hayden had called her rough around the edges. But now I think that she actually did know that ahead of time and allowed him to stay still. Like, she still allowed him to stay. And that's super concerning for me. Like, why, if I had that access to that type of information, there's no guy cute enough that I could possibly want after I had learned that he had been disrespectful to my friends. Like, that's immediately no. Like, I don't want any parts of that. So now I'm kind of looking at her a little bit sideways. I don't know if I misread the situation or, like, misinterpreted a detail. Let me know if I did. But if she did know that and still gave it another chance and then waited for him to essentially disrespect her to decide that it was time for him to leave, that's a whole nother question mark that I'm adding to my ever-growing pile of Rachel question marks. So then, to round out the night, we have Mr. Logan. He gets a rose from Rachel and decides to accept. And then in his little ITM confessional, whatever, he's like, oh yeah, I'm not actually still feeling Rachel. Like, don't get it twisted. I just took that rose so that I can approach Gabby at a later date. Trash behavior. Like, just absolutely aggravating, annoying, a waste of time. And to me, it's like, if I were Gabby, even if I was feeling him, like, even if I was like, dang, I wish Logan had wanted to be on my team, on my journey, like, whatever. Once I found out that he had wasted my friend's time, even if it wasn't an effort to get access to me, that would be an immediate turnoff. Like, don't disrespect my friend and take time away from my friend that she could be spending on a guy that's actually interested in her, to try to get at me. Like, that's not cute and it's not worth it. I don't think, I have no doubts that Gabby will kind of shut that down. I'm sure she'll see through that, but I'm really interested to see how this will play out. Thanks so much for watching another episode of Brianna's Bachelor Breakdown, and I'll see you right here next week.